I'm going to start off by shading with our mix of dried clay and medium and our warm beige. Oops. And I'll use my mop to soften that out. And then I'll come back down from this side. You can use your 1/2 inch or 5/8. Oops, right off the edge there. Hair's going to be there, so that's my theory. I always check before I worry about fixing things. And then we're going to shade under her chin as well. Can't seem to leave the phone alone. And then with what's on the brush, we'll go ahead and shade on the hands, walk it out. So I'll let that dry and I'll finish shading around her neck. So we're going to shade along the crease above the eye. And I do want to nice and softly walk that out a bit. So this, you may see your little line, but we are going to be taking our liner later on and coming in here and going over that line. So don't panic if you can still faintly see it. If your lines are really dark from your transfer, I always recommend putting on a coat of base color, flesh color over top of them so that they're faint. That's what I've done here. So I'm also going to shade a little bit on the sides of the nose. This is on the nose. And then a little just up top on the top of the nose. I'm also going to shade behind the nose, so my paint's going to be down towards the nose. Now we're going to shade, you can do a back-to-back float here. Nice and soft. And then the same thing here. We will be dry brushing a highlight in here after, which is going to make this not look as drastic. Now she also has a nice little chin. So we're going to do a little half C stroke there for her chin. And now we'll let that dry. We're going to do a little dry brushing to extend out our cheek area shading. Now I'm using this dry brush. It's a Royal and it's size medium. They're filbert type rather than a round dome type. I'm going to pick up my dry brush color, scuff it off on my toweling, and I'm going to take and just nice and softly come in from out here and just bring in. I can come up top here. We don't need to worry too much about up top, because what's going to end up happening is, and I'll bring this out, this helps you from having to walk your shadow out as far, but this ends up softening our shadow out, so it's like it's walked out. I'll come in the palms of my hands a little bit. That brings that out. So that softens that out nice. And now I'm going to just take, and I'm going to take that dirty brush, and I'm going to touch it into my Terra Coral. Tap it off on the palette. Scuff it off on my toweling. And then add our cheeks. Now we don't want, usually we'd be up on top here coming down with our cheeks, but I want these cheeks to come from the under part. So I'm just gonna, and I can clean up my edge here, whatever isn't covered by hair afterwards with my base color. That's why whenever I make a mix, I save some. Pardon me. So we've added those cheeks on there, give her a nice soft glow for her cheeks. All right. Now we're gonna go to our highlighting. Our highlighting, we're gonna use light mocha. I'm going to start off with my little 1/8 lunar blender. I always keep them, once they get kind of wrecked, to be a dry brush, because it's nice and tiny and you're able to direct it into where you want it to go. Nice and soft down either side of our shading on the nose here. Gonna put some highlighting on the chin. And I can put a little on my fingers. Now, I'm gonna take a larger dry brush, and I'll dry brush on the forehead and down the bridge of the nose. And this again is still our light mocha. Top of the cheeks. And this is going to really round our face. Put a little more on my hands if I want, and that should be good. I'm going to take my zero round, little of the light mocha, and I'm going to add this highlight line in behind our nose, or pardon me, eyes. And I'll just slide a little highlight line underneath the eyes. Now we're going to take our liner. I'm going to add a little raw umber to our shading mix, which was the warm beige along with the dried clay. So we're going to just You don't want to take all of your mix in. You might need it again, you never know. So I'm going to add a little raw umber just into a bit off to the side. Use my liner, and I'm going to, nice and fine, just loosely outline. So when I mean loosely, I mean I'm not going to take my liner and follow it one great big long line. And that's also where we talked about this crease line above the eyes that we would possibly see with our, after our shading. Now I go through that crease line and strengthen that up. I'm also going to fill in my nostrils. Got a little chunk in there somehow. So we're filling that in. I like to keep these nostril lines up inside, not so much bringing them down below. I'm also going to take a little of this and we're going to come along and just go along the lash line, kind of above that little light line that I just put on. Now that's made such a difference. I'm also going to use this mix and I'm going to pull in just some lines for her fingers. We're not doing tons of crazy shading or anything along there. You can shade her fingers if you want. I think I'll just outline that a bit there just to clean that edge up. So we've outlined all the parts that we need to outline with that mix. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put in our eyebrows. You can faintly see my lines in there. All I need them for is a place to make sure they're in the right area. So I'm going to take raw umber on my 1/4 lunar blender and very softly dry brush a base. Okay, so I want to have a nice little soft base for the eyebrows. So see how gentle that is. Then I'm taking, and I want to use a short liner. A short liner, this is my Princeton, it's actually a 12-0 round, but it's nice and fine, it has a great fine point, and this is gonna allow me to control my strokes better. If your liner's too long, you tend to make them longer. It just happens. It's easier to control with the shorter liner. So what I want you to see, and you can see it in your colored photo well, is that there's gapping left in between there. We're not filling everything completely in. And I'll turn her this way so that I'm able to pull my strokes more comfortably. And I'll even put it under the camera. It just works easier to be able to pull these strokes. You see how I'm following the direction they should go? And there's my nice and soft eyebrows. We're going to start with on our eyes. I'm going to start by shading Blue Raspberry. Now, blue raspberry is such a beautiful blue. I'm going to side load, set my brush down, and walk the shadow down. I'll do it a couple of times because I want to get some nice, intense blue. So we'll do that. So it's with the paint up, water down, walk it down. Same thing on the other side. I'll give it a quick dry. And then I'll repeat. So that blue really adds a nice pop to her eye. Once we've done that, we're going to take our short liner, and I'm going to take the midnight blue, and I'm going to add these fine lines all around the iris. Keep them nice and thin. And then we're going to use this midnight blue as well to outline between the iris, the color of the eye, and the white. So we've got that nice little outline there. That defines it nicely. I'm going to take my 1/4 shader and I'm going to side load a little bit of neutral gray, and I want to just shade a nice little comma, and I always blur with my finger, and I shade leaving a little of the black between my float and the blue. So I have a little black there in between. Now we're going to take, and I'm going to side load black, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to shade along the top of the eye. So this is going to strengthen my shadow along the top of that blue, really tones it down. So it's just a little side load, lamp black, 1/4 inch, or a 6 or an 8, whichever, if you're using. It's okay to have a little of that black on the white of the eye. That's all right. I'm going to use I'm using a #1 script liner, a Princeton, and it's a little bit thicker for me. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to apply my lash line. So I've got my nice lash line in there. I want it to be quite thick along the top. And because right along the top is where we're going to come into it using our short liner. And I'm going to come in with neutral gray, and I'm going to apply a line through the middle of that, and that's going to give me my highlight. Neutral gray highlight. I need a little more there. I like to do it when it's wet so it blends in. Sometimes you can leave well enough alone. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to add my black eyelashes, and along the bottom, the lash lines on the bottom, they're going to be bittersweet. So I'm using my short liner. Always thin it down a wee bit. And you use your liner so that, pardon me, the short liner will let you control easier. And then I'm going to turn. And it helps people to put those lash lines on. You don't want to get a little bit too carried away, and that's easy to do. So if you have a little guide for your eyes, I can come through and put in, like, I put minimal lines there for you, but you can come in and you can add some little tiny fine shorter ones in between, just not coming out too far. And then my lash lines that I'm going to put on the bottom, I've got her spinning like crazy. I'm not even paying attention. Probably half of it's not been under the camera. I've thinned down bittersweet chocolate. I don't want it to be black. And I'm going to add these thin, and they don't come very far. I'm going to stop in the blue section, kind of in the middle. So we've got our lines on. And now we're going to take our stylus, and I put them right out to be ready. I'm back. So I'm going to take warm white, and we want a nice fair size highlight dot. There we go. And then I'm going to use a smaller stylus and put a tinier dot around the edge of that one a bit more. There. That makes all the difference in the world. So now we have her eyes, and they're pretty. So I'm going to take raw umber now on my short liner. This way I'm controlling. And I'm going to come in the corner, both sides. Nice little raw umber. Put a little over here too. This eye looks like I could take a little. So there's her pretty eyes. So like I say, I put this little line here, a little raw umber there, and a corner of it there. Now it's time for her lips. So we base coated her lips in Victorian pink. So I'm going to use my 0 round. And I'm going to rebase. So we're just going to wet coat. So wet coat just truly means that we're going to add another coat on top. So we want to work with it while it's wet. It doesn't mean I've thinned anything down. So now I've got the dirty liner. I'm going to pick up some of the Terra Coral on the dirty liner, and I'm going to come along the bottom, and then what I call the bottom of the top lip as well, and just blend that up into there. And I take the dirty brush again, and I'm now into and I flatten the liner, the round out, because it'll work to be almost like a liner. And so I'm into the light mocha with the dirty brush, and I'm just going to swipe a few little lines across the top and a little bit of highlight across the bottom. I think I could take a smidge more there. And then what, pardon me, what I'm going to do, you remember we took our shading flesh color, which was dried clay and the warm beige, and now I'm going to mix a little tiny bit of the raw umber into it, we did before, and I'm going to put the line through the middle of the mouth, through that lip. And I'm going to bring up a little bit. It's almost like a little triangle in the bottom and the top of the mouth. It's that dark little center that's going to give you the pouty look to her lip. I'll just use the liner. Need it to be a little thinner, a little moister. And I'll just do a little curve on the top as well as along the bottom. And that gives us her nice little pouty lips. I think I could even have it a little tiny bit darker in the middle. So I just put a little more raw umber in there. There, that's not too bad. Okay, so we'll be back to do hair. For the hair, we're going to start with, and I'm using my a long script liner, and I'm going to just kind of follow along where I've transferred on these lines. And I'm going to do them in the raw umber. They're there as a guide, so you don't get carried away. It's very easy to get carried away when you're doing hair. And we're not too worried about what happens up here where the brim is going to get added on. And we're going to use our comb or rake, whichever you call it. The Princeton one is called a grainer, which is going to fill in heavier hair. Right now, what I'm doing with this is, and now I'll go into some bittersweet. So we've got some darker lines with the bittersweet, and I've got the raw umber. You always want a couple of loose stragglers to kind of come out onto, and I'm keeping my liner standing upright. So I'm able to give it the curls that I want. So that's not too bad. These are kind of mapping in our lines. And now I'm going to use my grainer, okay? So it's a rake or a comb. And I'm just going to dip my brush into the water, then pick up bittersweet and raw umber. And I give my brush a scrunch. So standing upright, twist so that it splays open all my bristles. And then I'm going to come in and basically follow those lines so I have the shape that I want. And I want to be able, when you scrunch it, it spreads open those bristles so that you're able to get the little wispies. And I keep hitting the camera. Now I'm going to take, I dip my brush in water, dirty brush, I'm going to pick up cocoa. Once I pick up the cocoa, I'm going to work it through, giving highlights. You'll never end up with the same amount of highlights. So once I get all my highlights in here, so you see how they're popping up? It's just, you go through and add as much as you would like. You can come back after with a liner and crisp up a few lines if you'd like. So you'll continue and put in all the hair that you would like. We just wisp those in. And you see how I can just add a few more with the liner to control the direction they're going. And like I say, anything that's up here where it's a see-through line, it's not really going to matter because she's got that brim of her hat that goes on top. All right, so that's our hair.